Welcome. I have not had a guest on here for a while, so I made sure it was a good one. I'm so excited to be interviewing Margaret Kazibwe. We are friends and fellow Tar Heels at UNC Chapel Hill, but more importantly, she is here to share all about her just embracing her confidence and is going to teach you how to really put yourself out there and write down what scares you and do it. Like, just jump in and dive in and do it. I'm super, this was a great episode to record. Her story is just so amazing and it's, I think, very applicable to so many people. And so I think you're going to get a lot out of it. Not only that, but she is an amazing podcast host. So she is the host of the Beautiful Collision podcast, which is amazing. And actually, I got interviewed on it when I first started my business. And then she just did a follow-up interview that she launched on Monday. So you should go check it out, listen to it. It's pretty cool because she basically checks in with me. So if you want to listen to the first one, me starting my business, and then where I am at now, go listen to it on the Beautiful Collision podcast. But first, make sure you listen to this episode with her because she has a lot of golden nuggets for you. Enjoy, and I'll see you in the podcast. Hey love, what's up? Welcome to Confidently Uncomfortable. I'm your host Jago, health and lifestyle coach and not so regal confidence queen. Coming at you with the real, the raw, and of course, the uncomfortable. My mission is to show you that to be confident, it has absolutely nothing to do with being perfect or having it all together, and everything to do with you getting uncomfortable and pushing your limits. Thanks for joining me. Let's dive in. Okay, so our guest today, I kind of already gave you an introduction, but I'm super excited because not only is she my friend, but she is an amazing, inspiring woman who is the host of the Beautiful Collision podcast. So I want to, you guys to just buckle up and listen to her story because there's so much that you're going to learn today. So how are you doing, Margaret?
I'm doing good. Thanks, Jordan, for having me on your podcast.
I'm so glad you could be here today. So I just want to jump right in because I feel like you have such an amazing story. So I want my audience to be able to hear it. So tell me a little bit more about you just growing up. You can start from birth in the hospital to wherever you want. So it doesn't really matter. Wherever you want to go for it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was actually born in South Carolina. A lot of people don't know that because I'm such a huge Texan.
You are.
Through and through, I feel like. But I moved to Houston, Texas when I would say like 5 or 6 or 7, somewhere around there. And I was raised in Houston. So that's like my biggest memory. So in the South, Texas, I grew up in a 2-parent household. I think the big thing there is my parents are immigrants. So I'm a first generation kid. So I have the like American part of me, but then also the Ugandan part of me. So that's interesting and cool and definitely its own nuance growing up. I have 2 brothers. So I'm the middle child, only girl.
Same.
Yeah. So I actually really love that. I think I'm definitely spoiled being the only girl. But I feel like as any only girl you should be spoiled by your brothers. So
absolutely.
But yeah, I mean, I think childhood growing up, I was an athlete. So I played a lot of sports. I went to a lot of like smaller type of schools. I'm an extrovert. So I was always in a lot of different things. I think kind of my whole biggest thing in life was just trying to I wouldn't say fit in, but I definitely had a lot of, I think growing up, issues with like approval and wanting people to like me and think I'm cool and think I'm cute and
that
think
middle child syndrome.
Yeah, definitely middle child. Like the middle child is like, I'm still here. Like, like I'm still here. So I think I never really like equated it to that, but yeah, I definitely had some major middle child syndrome. But yeah, and then I went to University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. That's where me and Jordan met. We met through a friend, Kira. And went there for 4 years. And then I kind of went all over the place after college. So I lived overseas. I lived in California. And now I've found myself back in Houston. And that's where I live now. So
awesome. So you're a Texas girl through and through.
Yes, it called me home.
Well, thanks for the quick summary of everything. I feel like there's so much to unpack there. Yeah, I know that you said the middle child, and then you said like the kind of having to like approve and get approval from everyone. Yeah. That is like, I mean, a lot of children in general, but I definitely noticed just as a middle child myself, like you're wanting to like kind of be the in between and make sure no one's fighting, and then you also like want to keep everyone happy. You're like the
Yeah.
peacekeeper. So definitely can relate to that. I want to kind of back up just a couple different things. Being brought up by immigrants. So I want to hear more about your parents because I just feel like there's some inspiration there. Your mom, I already know this because she's amazing, but she's super strong. So I kind of know like your upbringing with them and kind of what you feel like that were the biggest lessons you learned, and the dichotomy of like you being, like you said, American, but also like a child of immigrant.
Yeah, no, I think it's a very interesting nuance because I definitely highly identify with the American side of me
Hmm.
because I was raised here. I went to school here. Like all my friends were born and raised here for the most part. And so I think it was just interesting because the way our house was run had a lot of like I guess part of the Ugandan culture. And when I say that, it's like I mean like the foods my mom cooked
Yeah.
and maybe like my parents speak a second language, so they weren't always speaking English at home, and so I mean just like little things like that were just like very different than the average if I went to a friend's house, and how that was operated. I probably wouldn't have realized it then, but I think at the time I was like battling a little bit of a not identity crisis, but just this idea of I have two cultures.
Yeah.
And so because I have two, I'm not like fully one.
Yep.
And because of that, sometimes I think that for like a kid, a first generation kid, that can sometimes bring a little bit of confusion or if you feel a little bit of guilt because I identified so much with my American side. Just felt like guilt for not knowing
Hmm.
more about my Ugandan culture. Like I understand a little bit of the language, but I don't speak it. I didn't grow up around. There are some Ugandans in Houston, but I didn't grow up around a whole lot of them. And then for a while, for when we were younger, like we maybe went to Uganda. Like I've been to Uganda, but we went maybe like once every couple of years. So I didn't know a lot of my cousins there. So it was just I think for me it was like this where do I belong sort of
Hmm.
situation. And then I think on top of that, from the American side, I didn't know all the Americanisms,
Yeah.
and not all of them. And I didn't necessarily, yeah, I just didn't grow up the same way. So there was a part of me that was like, I don't know if I fit in here either. So I think it was just a little bit of an identity crisis, a little bit of like a confidence thing as well.
Hmm.
Just like, I don't know like who I am. I don't know where I fit in. So I think that fueled my approval of like, okay, I need to get everyone from all sides to like me. I grew up with a very, like you said, my mom's a very strong woman, very successful,
Yeah.
I would say, very confident. And so that's one thing that always was intimidating is we're very different in that way. My mom's very confident. Like she just doesn't really care what other people think. And I was the exact opposite. So I think sometimes when I was younger, it was hard for us to relate to because she like didn't understand like why things bothered me so much.
Yeah.
She was like, it's just a person. And I
Yeah.
was like, but it's a person who doesn't like, so
That's, oh my gosh, I love that. I mean, yeah, no, just I know how much you love your mom, and so that's why one of the things I mentioned with the strength. But I think that's a great point of it. Can also be maybe intimidating, like seeing that and feeling like you are trying to, I mean, please everyone and almost like fit in. I think, and as a child, I think that that's normal. It's almost like a survival, like it's just something you do to survive. Like when you go to school, you want to kind of fit in with those people, but then maybe when you're around your Ugandan cousins, like you're like, okay, well, I don't know the language, and
yeah.
so I think that's a great just realization, just kind of going out, like looking back. But would you say that that led to you feeling like you ever struggle with self confidence growing up? Like, do you feel like that's
Yeah.
something you could talk more about?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that was a part of so I definitely it's not like a little bit. I just struggle with self-confidence a lot and
Hmm.
particularly in high school. And so, and I think that was part of it, but there was a little bit another part of it too. And so so I don't know how candid if this is
All of
too
it. You got to
if
get real,
this is,
girl. Go.
yeah, if this is TMI. But so as a woman, you develop and
Yes.
I developed like very quickly
Mhm.
between like middle school and high school. And so I got all the like flumptuous parts
You
of my
got your
body just,
curves. Yeah.
yeah, it came in all at once,
Uh-huh.
like within a summer. It was like kind of weird.
Yeah.
And so I went back into high school very like just had a very defined figure. And so it was noticed very quickly. And I think I then felt this pressure to like I was noticing guys were like noticing my body,
Yep.
not necessarily noticing my mind.
Hmm.
And I'm big in the front. Again, that might be TMI. And in
No,
the
it's
back
not. Oh
in
my
a
gosh.
lot of
No,
ways.
you're gorgeous.
Um, and so I realized that that was being noticed, and I was also realizing that it was getting attention.
Hmm.
And so what that did in my head was like, I need to look a certain way to like gain this attention, and it was
Yep.
working. But
Hmm.
what was happening too was I was realizing that that's all they were wanting
Yep.
was
Yep.
like the body part of me, you know. And so I think that took me into this like weird thing in high school where I was like I became really obsessed with like what I looked like. And I wouldn't say I was really doing a whole lot to like be like I need to like I need to stay in shape or whatever because I was playing
Yeah.
sports and stuff, so that was a little bit natural. But I just was very cautious of what I looked like. But the other thing I was also noticing is because they were only like looking at my body and I was just getting so much attention for that, I was always really called like, oh, you're like hot or like
Yep.
sexy or like whatever,
Yep.
but never like beautiful or like
Mhm.
pretty. And I equated beauty and pretty with like the actual look of not like my figure, but like
Mhm.
my skin, like you know what I mean? Like
Yep.
what my hair looked like. And so in my head, I had internalized, and I didn't realize I was doing that. It was like,
Mhm.
I was like sexy, but I wasn't like beautiful. And I was only
Mm.
sexy if my body looked a certain way. And so when that's being internalized, then you're just like, there's so much pressure to, there just becomes all this pressure at like 16.
Yeah.
And then also on top of that, you are a struggling approval addict. So it's like, I need to keep these people liking me. So I don't know if you want to kind of ask questions about that, but
Yeah. I love
that's
this.
just kind of the overall overarching theme of like what happened. Maybe I would say starting ninth grade, and it just kind of spiraled all through high school, even into college in some
Yeah.
ways.
Yeah. So, I mean, the combination, like you said, with like wanting that approval and recognizing like where you were getting that attention and quote unquote like approval was like more base level, more surface level. And you were like, immediately, I think it's interesting the internalization of like, well, okay, I'm hot and sexy, but I'm not beautiful. And so that's hard because it's almost like it's okay, well, I want this approval, so I guess I need to keep focusing on just the outer shell, but then what about me? What about Margie on the inside? So
Mhm.
you said you struggled with this through college. How do you feel like that just affected you with whether it's like relationships with yourself, with guys, I know you mentioned boys, and then with even girlfriends that you were like connecting with? Like, how do you feel like that affected?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I think one is like I didn't really want to be sexy, and so
Yeah.
I was like, that's the and if you do like that's I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but
No.
I didn't. So like and so that was hard because I was like, I want to be beautiful. And in my head I internalized too, regardless of where I got this from, I don't know. And this could be from TV or whatever, was
Yeah.
like beautiful were people that were like going to like get married and have a family, you know, like
Yeah.
and again, that is completely wrong, you know. But and because I didn't see myself as that, and because I felt like a lot of men at the time in high school kind of treated me as like an object. So basically,
Yep.
like once they got me, and then you know we had some sort of like intimate relation, then
Yep.
like it wasn't like a thing,
It
you
was like a
know, like
short-term conquest. Yeah.
yeah, it was a
Yeah.
short yes, it was a short-term conquest, and then but it was not like a and I'm a loyalist. If you know me as a
Yes,
friend,
you are.
I'm a loyalist. I love long-term commitments and friendships, obviously, and so I like even at a young age, like I was the one that thought about like long-term relationships and like things like that.
Of course.
I never had those. They were all like these just quick things, and I just felt like it was because they got what they want, and then you know,
Mhm.
and so going into college. Sorry to answer your question.
You're
I
fine.
think it was hard because I went to a PWI. So for those of you listening, predominantly white institution, and I'm Black. And I think now it was like, okay, this is the age where like people are looking for like wives and stuff.
Yep.
And so
Yep.
the sexiness is like, that was a high school thing or whatever, but I was never beautiful. So nobody's going to like,
Mm,
and it felt that way. And I think it was just like because I had also internalized that just like people that look like me don't get certain things,
mm-hmm.
or there's statistics thrown around that, Black women are like have a high likelihood of like not getting married, just things that
Mm-hmm.
I personally desired. And so
Mm-hmm.
it was hard going to, college as well, because I was like, I'm this in an arena where I don't think a lot of these people think I'm beautiful,
Mm-hmm.
or like, and so anyways, so that just dominoes into more self-confidence of like, am I worthy? Am I this?
Yeah.
Am I like, I don't know, am I smart enough? Yeah, everything was just through that lens of like,
Yeah.
it started with the beauty lens, but then it just domino affected into everything else of like, I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, I'm not
Yeah.
smart enough. And like all the friends I have are like better than me.
Yeah.
And that was just kind of became because I just didn't see people like me in that were deemed as beautiful, like multiple
Mm-hmm.
people, and then also people like me that were like doing the things I wanted to do. And so I felt like I just became this like, I think around 18, I just became this like fly on the wall
Mm.
in the lives of my friends. And I don't think they realized it, but I had my personality and people liked my personality and liked that I was like loud and outgoing. So I was like, okay, like this is what people like. So let me keep this up. But
Yep.
I felt like I could never be what I thought I wanted to be. I had to just be what was likable by other people. So again,
Yeah.
in high school it was like the sexiness. And
Mm-hmm.
then I think in college it was like the personality. People,
Funny.
you're
Yeah.
so positive, you're so encouraging. And I am, but I also have like hard things, but I just was too scared to like open up about those things because that's not how people saw me.
Yeah. I really relate to obviously not all of that on a in your shoes level, but
Yeah.
with the idea of like, okay, well, people like that I'm funny and they like that I'm positive. So like I want to keep showing up as that person for them. But it's crazy. And I noticed with a lot of extroverts, it's like the more we're like working to show up as like that version of ourselves, the more it's like we lose the other parts of who we are.
Hmm.
And so I definitely think that a lot of people can relate to that. One thing that you mentioned, like just with your friends, like kind of seeing them, and like you said, you went to a like predominantly a white institution, and so being around that and kind of seeing your friends and like it's almost like we're creating this checkbox. And I want to know, like, do you feel like you were comparing yourself a lot, or do you feel like you were putting yourself down, or was it more of just being that fly on the wall of just like stepping back completely and being like, well, there's just no way that I can even be considered for a partner or something like that?
Yeah, no, I think I've compared myself a lot, and here's the thing, surprisingly, so I don't think I've ever said this out loud, but so the group of friends that I probably hung out with the most, a huge chunk of them like didn't date in college, not
Yeah.
because I guess they didn't want to. They were just not that many guys are just like great guys, I guess, available. I don't know. I
Yeah.
mean, I
There
had a
were. It
really
was
cool,
Carolina.
yeah, it was Carolina. So they didn't really date in college, but in the back of my head, I had this internalization, which I like never vocal, but I was like, those girls will all get married before I do.
Mm,
And I always thought that. I just never said it because, I mean, you don't say that out loud, but I always thought that. And the mere reason I thought that was because they're society's version of beautiful. And
mhm.
I mean, they're good. They're some of my greatest friends. I mean,
Amazing people.
they're
Yes.
great people and all that kind of stuff, but like also people will be attracted to them.
Hmm.
And let's be honest, there has to be some level of attraction on top of
Yeah.
person. And so people will be attracted to them. And I was like, that no matter like, for me, people are not going to be as attracted to me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and especially not only being Black, being a little bit darker. I mean, there are people that are darker than me as well, but even then I'm not like a light skin,
Yeah.
Black person. And so, I was like, I just wasn't. I generally wear my hair. Well, now I did it in college. That was the other thing. Like my hair, I wear it a lot more natural now.
Hmm.
done my hair out, so it's a little like fro-like, like coarse and kinky. I don't know. Those of you listening, it's like a hair type, so you can Google it. But like 4C is my hair, and so that's a type of Black person's hair. And so it's a little more coarse and kinky. I never, not one time, wore it out in college because so it was always in braids because I had internalized like that wasn't beautiful and people would not, and then people would ask a lot of questions and I just didn't have time for that.
It's a lot of energy that you don't need to give.
Yeah. And I'm just like, I don't want you to like ask me a million questions about my hair.
No.
And so I say all that to say, I was like, just little things like that. I was like, that's not deemed as beautiful. And so people are not going to be attracted to that. And that was like something I thought, like I genuinely thought. And the reality is I am still single and all of them are married. And that's not a bad thing, but I just think it was just that's been a fight, and in the last 2 years, and I'm sure we'll talk about this, like my confidence is completely shifted and I don't view it like that anymore. But for most of college and even going a little bit out of college, I was like, like I'm going to be the girl that takes a long time to get married because I'm not beautiful. And for me, and I say that to people listening, for me, like that is a desire of my heart. So for some of you ladies listening, like, that may not matter to you, but for me, it mattered. And so, yeah.
I mean, first of all, Margie, like your feelings are warranted. So I never want you to feel like because you're saying them that it has to be like, oh, well, I shouldn't even be saying this. Like, no, like I want you to speak this out because so many people have internalized things like this. And like, so the fact is like, you've internalized this, it seems like from childhood all the way up through adulthood. So even just the process of like coming into your own and embracing your beauty for like on the outside and the inside and redefining like Margie, like this is me, I'm beautiful. Like I want to know more. You talked about the shift and I do want to dive into it because there has been this shift in you and it's amazing and you've always been beautiful, but I see that just how you're showing up for yourself and how you're embracing who you are. And it's amazing. So I want to know more about like, how did that shift happen? Like, was it just an overnight thing? Was it a process? Was it internal work? Like, I want to know more about that shift in yourself and working towards that confidence.
Yeah. So I think, so I graduate from college, I go live overseas for a year, working for a nonprofit. I go live in California for a year and I moved back to Houston and I go live with my parents for a couple of months. Like I feel like everyone does when they move home. Yep. Maybe not everyone, but I did. It was free rent. But anyways, so yeah, so I come back to Houston. So that was like 2015 when I get back to Houston. And I don't know, I was just like, I think I got a realization, like I'm an adult, like I'm a functioning adult with like a job, and I cannot like live my life like running around for other people. But I just like didn't know. I just like did not know. I was like, okay, what does that look like to like be just brave in who I am? And like, what is that going to mean? And so for me, I was like, for me, so faith is a huge part of my life for those of you listening. And so I'm a Christian and I love Jesus. So for me, I started praying because I was like, I need to know what that looks like. I don't know how to do that. Like, I just don't know how to be that confident. And it's great, when you have friends. All your friends tell you you're great, you're beautiful, but
you have to believe it.
You have to believe it. Yeah. You have to believe it for yourself. And it is hard to believe when you don't see that in the overall world. And so it's like, yeah, it's like when your mom's like, oh, my baby's so cute. Like, and you're like, Mom,
you have to say that.
Yeah. Like I'm your child, and so that's, I think, what you start to believe with your friends, when they're trying to encourage you, but they're getting all the things you want, all that kind of stuff. So I just started to pray. And I think around 2017, so it was like 2 years and I was just like, I don't know what this looks like. I think around 2017. So I had started listening to podcasts and things like that. And I had started getting into them. And around 2017, I had just like this revelation from the Lord, like, you should start a podcast. And the first reason I wasn't going to do that, I was like, no, because that means everyone has access to like my thoughts and opinions. And it was vulnerable. yeah, and it's going to be interview based, but still like everyone, and that gives people to a platform, not a platform, but a, yeah, kind of like a platform to decide like, do I like something? You know, I'm like, and I'm basically giving myself the opportunity to be judged on my podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't have this huge following or anything. So, I mean,
The
honestly, it was,
podcast is amazing, though.
it's, I mean, it was still going to be probably people in my life listening to it. But even then, I was like,
Still.
yeah. And so when I started thinking that way, I actually wrote down all the things that scare me.
Wow.
That like, that are, that if I do would be like vulnerable, and I would not be, and would be brave for me to do the
Yeah.
things that make me. So I wrote them all down, and I was like, okay, like we're gonna start we're gonna start doing these things.
Yes.
And so I was like, we have to start somewhere. And so I prayed a lot, and launched a podcast. And originally it started with a friend, but launched a podcast.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing was wear my hair natural. And
Love
so
it.
that was one of the things. And that was like a huge fear for me, because I just like that kind of style of hair, like wasn't really, I just don't feel like super, not accepted, but I just don't feel like a lot of people do
It
that.
wasn't. I mean, even in the workplace, I mean, there were still places that were
Yeah.
not allowing that, which is bizarre to me. But yes, so you're
Yes. And so I wrote that down, and I was like, okay, I'm going to do that. And that was going to be huge. And then I got pictures done with my natural hair. And that was like, and I was like, oh no, like this is, and I was like, Margaret, you're gonna have to post them. Like you're gonna have to post some of these. And I was like, I don't want to. And so, but I was just like, and I just felt like the Lord was just like, do this, do this, do this, like do these
love
little
that.
things. And so every time I would come out with these things, I would just like pray, and I'd be like, okay, Lord, like I'm gonna need this confidence, and I would do them. And I would usually like post and then like shut down my Instagram because I
Run
didn't
away.
want to. But when I started to do those little things, I think for me, the Lord started to like chisel this, like, these are the things I've created you to like to do. And this is the kind of person I've created you to be. And it's been so suppressed because you've cared so much about what other people think.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think as I just started doing baby steps towards them, the confidence changed. And then I think at a certain point, I was just like, this is the creator of the universe created me this way. And he thought it was great. That's why he created me this way. Yes. So all these other people who did not create me, why do they have a say in like how I function?
Wow.
You know, and how I'm seen in this world. So for those of you listening, like, I think, you know, if you are a Christian, I think for me, it was just like understanding like, okay, this is how God created me, and he thought it was great. That's why he created me that way, or else he wouldn't have created me that way. And so like, he created me. None of these other people created me. So why does it matter? And maybe for those of you that aren't Christians, I think really just like going into this space of like, okay, what are all the things that scare me, and how do I start doing them? You know, and maybe if you don't pray, I would just advise you to pray, because I think it might help. It's helped me a lot. So you can just try it. This could be the first time you try it. But I mean, I think it really helped just writing down those things. And just being like, okay, what are all the things that scare me, and how can I do them? You know, that unless they're like really ridiculous, but you know, like,
no,
you don't
I love
to, like,
them.
jump out of plane, really. You know,
you do. That's on my list. That's funny you say that. Oh my gosh. Okay. I love that process, Margie. And so the other thing that I love is you said 2015 was when you first had this like come to Jesus moment where you're like, okay, God, like I know something's got to give here. And then it was 2 years of just that process. So I think that's just an amazing example of, okay, like this takes time, but the first step was you were just like, all right, I'm open. Like, I get it. I'm not where I want to be with my confidence. And I know that you've created me to be this amazing, amazing woman, but like, I don't know what that looks like. And it's scary. And I'm so like scared to even start. But I think just being open, that first step was a major pivotal moment. Would you agree? Would you feel like that was like a big step?
Yeah, you know, and I think to encourage some of you listening, because I think for me, you see people on the interwebs and everything like, I'm confident now, you know, and you don't really know their story of how they got there. And so I think, and some people it genuinely is an like overnight thing, but for I think the majority of people, it's not. And it takes time. And so I want to encourage you guys, because like, if you're at the stage where you realize like, I have just basically been like self-deprecating um
Yep.
for a long time, and you realize that, I think that in itself is a victory, that like you're realizing like, this is where I'm at.
Yes. Yes.
And I just think the next step for you is be like, okay, like, I need to think through, pray through, like, how do I move forward from this? And it's okay if that takes a couple of years, like, to figure that out, you know? And I would say, like Jordan said, it's 2020 now. So I'm so much more confident than I was even
Yeah.
2017. But there are still days where I'm like, man, like, am I really beautiful? Like, or like, I don't know if we want to use Instagram, like, I don't know if I really want to post that. Or,
Yeah.
and I know that's a huge part of Jordan's, you
Yep.
know, platform, post it, even if you don't want to, but, you know, like, I don't really know if I really want to post that, or, like, not even just post, but even just in life, like, I don't really know if I should start that, you know,
Yeah.
start this thing. Like, who's going to listen? Who's going to whatever? And so, so there's still days with that, but I had to just trust. I had to just keep reminding myself the revelation I had before of like, no, none of these people created you. Do what you're going to do. The creator of the universe loves who you are. And so
Mhm.
that in itself was a fuel for me, because I was like, then these people don't matter. And not in a like, I don't care about people way, like,
No.
be ridiculous, but in
Mhm.
a, they really don't matter, like,
Yeah.
in the scheme of like my life.
Yeah, yeah, and just pleasing them. I love the quote you said. You're very quotable, by the way. You said, "I cannot live life running around for other people." And I think that's very powerful, because it is exhausting if you are
Mhm.
constantly trying to run around and please others. You are never going to please everyone, and you're definitely not going to end up pleasing yourself and pleasing God. So I think it's so powerful how you said that, and then to be brave in who you are. So what advice would you give? You gave people some really good nuggets to take away, but what's like a key piece of advice for someone who is still struggling with that confidence in themselves, and to be vulnerable and put themselves out? Like, what would you say to that person? Where can they?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good question. I so I'll start with the like, probably the cliche thing, but it's so true, is you are loved just the way you are,
Yes.
and you are valuable. And there's only, I think Jordan's actually said this, there's only one you. So
Yes.
you have your own like uniqueness. You have, even if you feel like you're similar to someone else, like, you have your own unique. There's not another person that has your brain, that thinks the way you do, that even processes the way you do completely. There's only one you. So because of that, like, everyone has their own like worth, if that makes sense.
Yes.
So, you know, if you're struggling with this thing of like, just self-confidence of like, I am not beautiful, I am not, I don't know, worthy, I don't know if I can start that. Like, just start with saying, I would just say, even waking up in the morning and saying, I am worthy,
Hmm.
you know, I am beautiful, I am unique, I'm special, like, all those different things. I think start there.
Yes.
But I think the biggest thing is, which is helpful, write down all the things that scare you.
I love
Like,
that. I'm definitely doing that. I'm going to make so many people do that too. I
yeah,
love
like,
it.
write down the things that scare you to do, or write down the things that even scare you, I guess, to say, or
Mm.
just write down the things that if you did them, or if you said, would be like a step of courage for you. Write them all down, as you think about them, and then look at them and pray over when to do them. You know, like, you don't have to do them all at once. It's a little
Mm-mm.
overkill,
It's aggressive.
but like, and that can be exhausting. But
Mhm.
and then start thinking about, okay, when am I going to do these things? Because
Mm.
I think for me, I always had to have something practical.
Mhm.
So outside of saying the words, I was like, okay, I'm going to say these words, but what is going to be my actual action step?
Actions. I love that.
Because sometimes what I've learned is, through action follows like kind of the heart change and the desire. So sometimes you
Yes.
just have to act, even if you're not there yet,
Yep.
and the confidence will follow. And
Mhm.
so for me, like, I had to, even starting my podcast, I acted before I was fully confident in
Yep.
myself. Or even with my hair, I acted before I was fully confident. But
Mhm.
I had to act for the confidence. Like the confidence came with that action. And so sometimes I would say that I think we sit here in places and waiting for the confidence to come
Yep.
before we act. And I think you could be waiting forever if you do that.
Yes. Oh my gosh, I love that. It is so well said. Like that's something I preach is like with my clients, I'm like, okay, the confidence doesn't show up until you do. Like you need to jump into it, take messy action. I mean, that's literally the premise behind this podcast is to be confidently uncomfortable. So even if you write down all those things that scare you and you're like, okay, I'm not confident, but I'm confident that I'm uncomfortable about doing anything on this list. And then that's still okay. That's a great place to start and a great place to be. So I'm so glad you said that because I think a lot of women especially, but a lot of people just struggle to think, well, I'm just going to wait until I'm confident, until I'm ready. So biggest advice you would give to them was just do it.
Yeah, just do it. And don't be, I mean, ready is a weird word because I don't know, I don't know how ready we really are for anything.
True.
Because life does its own thing while we're also trying to plan it,
Exactly.
which, so, I mean, right now, point taken, we're in COVID. So,
Yep.
so I'm sure we've had so many plans or different things that we wanted to do this year and COVID happened. So,
Yep.
I mean, I think ready is a weird word sometimes because you may not ever like feel ready
Yep.
for a lot of the things you want to do. So I think, yes, I think there's wisdom in like when you do things,
Yes.
especially if you're doing things that you have to invest in. But I think some of the biggest confidence things are just like wearing certain things
Yep.
or posting certain things, which that there's no like ready for that. Just I mean, you just do it.
Yeah.
There might be other things like maybe like launching something that takes a little bit more thought. But I would almost argue that most of the things that scare you are things that you could probably do tomorrow.
Yeah. Yeah.
you know
No, I
so
agree with that.
so I think don't let that be an excuse, this ready thing, just go. It's going to be uncomfortable all the way through, and some of these may even be conversations you want to have. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's going to be uncomfortable, but there's a freedom after the fact.
Yeah.
There really is. There
Yeah.
really is. Like when I posted that picture of my natural hair, like there was a true freedom after the
Mm,
fact of like, oh,
yeah.
okay, like that wasn't crazy.
Yeah.
People didn't go crazy about like
Yeah.
didn't say anything crazy about it. And I will say this, some of the things you do, the reaction that you were expecting may
Yeah.
happen. But that's not the point. Because confidence
Exactly.
that's not the point
You're
is
not
for
doing it for others. Yeah.
you're not doing it for that's the whole point of confidence. And so I think just remember that too,
Yeah.
that
I think that's great, Margaret. So last thing before I switch to the rapid fire questions, but
yeah.
what do you think young Margaret would think about Margaret today? Like, how do you feel like if she was looking at her and she like was looking in the future and seeing her like talk to me about that. I want to hear.
Oh, if young Margaret knew Margaret today, I
Mhm.
think she would be really like, what? Like, I think the fact that, and I'm still growing, but I think
You are.
the fact that even just in conversations, I've become a lot more like bolder and like at work, and what I do, like just a lot more. I work for university. And so just a lot more, have a lot more confidence in knowledge of myself. I think there was a part of me for a while that just thought I wasn't smart.
Mm,
Um, and that, that I don't know, that I couldn't be like the smart kids because the smart kids looked a certain way or had
uh-huh.
certain things and that just wasn't me. And so I think this idea that like I do know things and I am confident
Oh, she's
and
super
that
smart, by the way.
yeah, just all those things I would have never, even in college, I don't think I would have ever thought that this Margaret would be here, that
It's
I
pretty
could
awesome.
speak. Yeah, that I didn't feel guilty about going and get professional photos done as, and like didn't feel some type of way about that. Like I've done that twice now and it's weird. I don't think I would have ever done that because that's just for me, it was like that's for certain people, or like
Mm-mm.
if you're a family, you have a family, take your little cute photos. And I was just like,
No.
that's not. So I think that was it, and I think I also don't think young Margaret would have really thought that older Margaret would be so confident as a Black woman today. And I'm bringing a lot of this back to that because as we end, for you guys listening, because I think, it could be easy to say, does everything come from that? And the reality is a lot of it does, because there is just a real reality of when you do not see growing up in the spaces that you want to be in, people that look like you, there's just a real internalization there. Like, I can't explain it. I don't even know how to explain it, but there's just a real internalization. Like, that is not for people like me, or like, I can't be in places like that. And when you're surrounded by a lot of people that don't look like you because of the schools you went to or the colleges you went to, it feeds into that. And you don't even realize it's happening sometimes, but it just feeds into that. And so you just, regardless of if it's not true, it's internalized. It just happens. And so there's a huge reality of like needing to be represented. And so I don't think high school Margaret would have ever thought now that I would be confident as a Black woman, the way I was created, knowing that I can do all the same things that my white counterparts can do.
And more. Yes, ma'am. No, I love that. And I think that's true. Like, representation matters, and whether we do or don't realize it, like growing up, like it's a different experience and it is internalized. And so that's why I think it's so amazing, because guess what? You are representing that just right now by showing up and being 100% authentic and as you. And I think it's very powerful and in its own way, a rebellion against the world that we're growing up in. So I'm proud of you. I love that.
Yeah. I'll just say one last thing to that. For those of you that may not understand, okay, I don't understand because I'm not Black. I would say think about it in this way, because this is Jordan's podcast and she's a fitness person. But like, I think even the idea, like if you grew up and you felt like you were like bigger than everyone else and you saw a lot of like tiny people on all the like reality shows and all the shows, like you internalize that. Like, and so it's the same thing. You, as me being a Black person, internalizing only seeing majority white people in pretty much all spaces. It's the same thing of like you not seeing people that were your size or whatever on the screen, that everyone was like stick thin, So I think that's, if you want to kind of understand where I'm coming from, like think about it that way.
I think that's a great way to help people maybe understand that don't. So I appreciate you doing that. You didn't have to, so thank you. Yeah, no, I am. I'm very proud of you. I'm very thankful for you sharing today. I know that a lot of people got a lot out of this, and so I'm going to throw some rapid fire questions at you to wrap up. Are you ready? Okay, so she didn't know any of these beforehand. You got to say them quickly, and they're very weird. So just okay. All right. Question number 1: what is your favorite word?
Happy.
Happy. Question 2: tacos or pizza?
Tacos.
Okay, what would you have on your tacos? What's your go-to?
I like chicken fajita tacos, or there are these fried avocado tacos. I'm from Houston, Texas, y'all. So
you get good stuff in Houston. I'm jealous.
We have like every taco available.
All right, so we have to go to Texas for good tacos. And then favorite dessert?
Ice cream, but I can't eat it because I can't eat dairy anymore.
I know. Ben and Jerry's has the non-dairy stuff now, so that's my go-to. Okay, but what?
No, I was just saying I didn't have the dairy allergy my whole life. It came later, and so I've had ice cream in my lifetime, but I can't eat it anymore.
Listen, I'm dairy intolerant too, and I definitely still eat ice cream. So don't worry. Favorite noise or sound?
I've never even thought about this.
I know.
Clapping? I don't know.
Clapping. See, that's the people pleaser in us. I'm with that. And then last one. Okay, so this podcast is called Confidently Uncomfortable. I kind of tapped in that earlier, but I want to know, maybe it's from your list, maybe it's not. What is one thing you're working towards right now or this year that is, it's uncomfortable and you're working towards it in the future that you're maybe even excited about?
So I actually, I don't know when this will happen, but I want to have this is long, like a talk show. I don't know if it's going to go on a YouTube channel.
Yes.
My dream in life is to be on a talk show. So I don't know if that's to start my own talk show, but just with other women to just talk about like real things, like life things. So basically it's taking a podcast to a whole nother level, but it's a conversation with people. And so we talk about faith, life, I don't know, marriage, all the different things, fitness. And so I really want to have a talk show sometime in life. I don't know when that will be. I don't know if it means a YouTube channel first, but
Okay. So I want you to say, I'm going to start a talk show. Just say that word.
I'm going to start a talk show.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Awesome.
Yes.
So
I'm
speak it
going to
out.
start a talk show. So that's a goal. And that would be uncomfortable for me because that would really put all my opinions out there for people to judge.
Listen, keep doing it. I'm so excited for it. Y'all heard it first. She's going to have a talk show, but until then, you can check her out at Beautiful Collision Podcast. I'm going to have the link in the show notes. You can follow her on social. Everything she does, everything she talks about is amazing. She's just such a light. So you definitely want more Margaret in your life. So be sure to check it out. Margaret, thank you for being here. I really appreciate you. And I'll see you next time.
Yeah, thanks, Jordan.
Thanks again for listening to Confidently Uncomfortable. I love being able to connect with you here and honestly, don't want it to end. So head over to my Facebook group, Body Confident Blueprint, and be sure to follow me on Insta at JGoFitLife. Also, if you're ready to get real confidently uncomfortable, go leave this podcast a 5-star review and email me the review screenshot, support@jgofit360.com, for a chance to win a free 30-minute fitness audit and goal setting session. I appreciate your support. See you next time.